Well, good morning, everyone, and welcome to Ross Tour's very first tour webinar. We're very excited to be sharing our tours with you in this way. This is actually our first online webinar, so please do bear with us because we are webinar novices, and so there could be some hiccups, so we do ask for your patience, so thank you. For those of you who don't know me, my name is Kirsty Noble. I'm one of the tour leaders with Ross Tours. I'm based here in Sydney in the Beecroft office. I'm the newest recruit to the Ross Tours team. I joined just last year. I've been spending I lived for the last 10 years in the US where I was doing tours and managing a garden centre. I am a horticulturalist by trade. So I'm thrilled to be back here and working with the team and along with Graham. So I am going to introduce you to Graham because he and I are here today. So here we are. There should be, bear with me as I said. And I think, Graham, over to you.
A very good morning to you. Thank you for joining us. And to all of you, thank you very much for wherever you are. It's great to have your company this morning. Thank you, Kirsty.
Oh, thank you, Graham. All right, so we'll start the presentation. And the first slide that you can see has all our tours listed. So today, what we'd like to do is to really introduce you to our local tours. The last few months has been very challenging for everyone. And so as you can see, our program that's coming up is very much focused on what's happening within Australia, within the States, and we do have one trip over to New Zealand. So we have made adjustments to our tours to keep all our guests safe and to comply by the COVID regulations. And later on in the tour, in this presentation, we'll be getting Royce Green, who is our tour manager, and Royce will be joining us to explain that in more detail. Now, you can ask questions, so you should have a chat box, so certainly ask some questions there. We don't have a lot of time, so if you do ask some questions, we will be getting them back to you. We will get back to you. I'll actually be contacting everyone after this webinar and checking in with you and making sure we do answer any questions and following up any tour questions that you have. So at the moment, what you can see on screen are all our upcoming tours. And as I said, they're very much focused locally, and we do have some brand new tours to tell you about, including some day tours. So I am going to hand it over to Graham. He's just going to give you a brief chat about the tours. And this is really to give you a taster and just to give you a bit of a sense of what's going to happen on the tours so you know what's coming up. So by all means, so now all you need to do is just relax, sit back. I hope you've got a cup of tea. And yeah, I'm going to hand it over to you, Graham. And I think first we are going over to the Western Australia wildflowers.
Yeah, thank you, Kirsty. We've been travelling to Western Australia for a long time, but I must admit we tended to have two tours. One was the north and one was the south. Then we discovered that down the south, sort of from Perth south in a huge southwestern corner of WA, that's really where the wildflowers are at their very best. It's a slightly different time, and we had to focus, and we've worked that out. From the 9th to the 23rd of September is when you'll get to see a great display of wildflowers. Now, my very great and friend colleague, who's a WA resident, he will be taking this tour once again. It looks at the southwest corner. We're travelling from Perth to Albany, Hopetown, Esperance, and then back to Perth with Colin in sort of a huge circle. I guess it's really a hotspot, a global hotspot of wildflowers. There are more wildflowers in this little region that you're looking at in the screen now than anywhere else in Australia. There are more there. Now, there are lots elsewhere, but there's so many in this little corner. We'll see the marigums, the ancient towering jarrah trees, and these beautiful banks. There's so many more. The historic whaling station at Albany, the Stirling Ranges, all the national parks, and some of the world's biodiversity, as I said, hotspots from Cape Arid National Park right out into Wave Rock, which goes back 2,700 million years ago, a great granite rock with amazing shapes and carvings on it, 15 metres high, 110 metres long. And then we'll come back in a big swoop. But it doesn't finish there because we're going to end up in Kings Park, which is absolutely spectacular. we'll take you behind the scenes. Kings Park was set up way back in the early colonial history of Perth. And then, of course, it became a botanic gardens in the 20th century. In the 21st century, they are leading Australia in plant breeding. So we'll get to see some of these hybrids that you're looking at there. Not only the kangaroo paws, but so many others are other plants that we're growing in our gardens, including a grevillea that has in fact just been released this week on the East Coast. They're grafting them and doing some really great research. So Western Australia and Kings Park is where it's all going to be happening in that incredible tour with Colin.
Perfect.
Inside New South Wales is a tour that we started a few years ago because we were doing individual journeys to the garden festivals throughout the New South Wales state and the big gardens. We decided to put them all into one tour so that you sit on a bus and we just take you around in the coach from wonderful garden experience to another. You'll get to meet the owners, you'll get to meet the CEOs, the head gardeners, all of the staff, and you'll see incredible displays. Now, we've been checking, in fact, as you may have heard on 2GB the weekend before last, I interviewed the owner of Bill Roden of Tulip Top. And this is Sandra and and in fact, there's Kirsty on the left-hand side there. All having a great time. It was a fantastic tour, and Kirsty joined Sandra last year on this journey. So it really is getting to visit, and you'll be staying in Bowral, Canberra, Orange, and Katoomba. In the Southern Highlands, you'll visit Red Cow Farm, Harper's Mansion, Kay and Les Musgrave's beautiful garden. We've known them for such a long time. In Canberra, Tulip Top, the private garden, as I mentioned, with Bill and his wonderful wife, Pat. Floriade is going ahead and will be spread throughout the city. Old Parliament House will be visiting, the National Arboretum, the National Botanic Garden. Out at Cowra, the Japanese Garden. One of the most, in fact, that photograph on the screen now is in fact the Australian Botanic Garden at Mount Annan.
Yeah, beautiful.
I can't believe when I was there for the opening 30 years ago now, it's just grown to be one of those sensational landscapes in Australia, and the wildflowers are just beautiful. So in Canberra, we'll get to see Tulip Top and the Japanese gardens, Orange, private gardens, Millthorpe, and of course, this is Mayfield, the largest private garden in Australia and one of the largest in the world. It's quite a spectacular sight. I must admit, a lot of people have been going up there this last week with the opening up of New South Wales in the winter. It's just stunning any season, but in spring, this is the water garden that you can see there, and it's just the most beautiful landscape. And the owners we know, and the head gardener and the CEO, everybody, and the staff I've met in the many times I've filmed there for Better Homes and Gardens. And in fact, on Ross Tours, you can often see those ventures that I've made out to Mayfield, to Oberon. You'll see them on the screen. Well, it doesn't finish there. It continues. We come back to the Blue Mountains, to Katoomba, and we visit Mount Wilson to catch up with our very dear friends. And this is the thing with all of our tours, especially this one, you get to meet the owners. So we go to Nauru. Tony and Lorraine Barrett, my apologies, will take you right through the garden. It's a sensational spot. We'll also go to Lura and Everglades, that incredible landscape. Look, there is so much. It's an 11-day trip, and you just sit back and enjoy in the coach, wonderful meals, wonderful accommodation, spectacular hospitality, and you will get to see really the best of the gardens and some of the best private gardens in Australia without any shadow of a doubt. Well, we're just waiting for Tassie to open the door because we've just been down there. Sandra and I went down there at the beginning of this year, just before COVID really took off. In fact, the bushfires were a major problem up and down the eastern seaboard. And we got to see Tasmania at its best. But I must admit, when we did this tour last year and the year before, everybody came back and said, what a sensational journey. From the 5th to the 12th of October. It's, I guess, the display, and you can see the lighthouse there out at Table Cape. This is another family, and the family that run Van Diemen quality bulbs. There are the tulips there, the sheep in the front. They're just such a beautiful family. All the team will be there to welcome our groups. You'll see the tulips and the daffodils, everything just looking so sensational. And that's Bass Strait. It's the most incredible landscape to see this garden. We'll be staying in Launceston and in Hobart. It's 8 days, just over a week, so it's a nice little escape. So we go to Van Diemen Quality Tulip Farm and the quality bulbs there. We'll go to meet Bob Cherry, my very dear friend, and his wife, Derilee.
Yeah, we'll go. There he is, Graham.
Oh, there's Bob, dear Derilee, under that incredible cherry tree. Bob is our greatest plantsman, our greatest plant breeder in Australia for an entire century. He's just been incredible, Bob. And he retired with ill health from the mainland down to Tassie. Well, of course, typical, Tassie's wonderful climate enabled him to recover in health. He's back plant breeding, and he's just into everything. Sweet peas, zinnias, in fact, delphiniums, liliums. He's loving the cool climate. And of course, we're loving the fact that he's so well. We caught up with him in January, and he's so looking forward to the group coming back again in October this year. So we'll get to meet Bob and Derilee and walk around their garden and really enjoy their hospitality. The Mersey Valley Gardens, of course, we've been visiting for a long time. And this is what we've tried to do with this tour, is to put in the very best. Mole Creek and, of course, Old Wesleydale. You may have seen both of those on Better Homes in the last year or two. Wonderful people. And again, the owners of these gardens will escort you personally around the garden, explain the plants, outline the details of the lupins and the killia and everything. And they're in these photographs. They'll explain them all to you. You can take down the notes and think, well, that worked. I can try that in my garden, maybe with different plant selections. But the main thing is that you just have a whole heap of fun. Crawley Wood Garden is another. It's in the Huon Valley, south of Hobart. And of course, you couldn't go to Hobart without a visit to Mona. Well, Mona is one of those incredible locations. It really is a top spot. Yeah, you'll get challenged in Mona, that is for sure. So there's lots to see on this incredible journey as we head around Tasmania, mainly in the top, but we will go down to Hobart to enjoy the experiences of the gardens down there. I wish I was going on that tour. Bob is just such a lovely guy. Well, no, this wasn't, these weren't any of our couples, and you can get dressed up like this, so many of our people. And dear Carolyn, who's been escorting this tour for some time, in fact, all of our tour leaders love going to the Melbourne Cup, the Lexus Melbourne Cup. But once again, you'll get to see these roses. You'll get to see all of the displays. Honestly, it's one of the spots I love filming every year. We haven't been down for a year or two, but when I was there last, these yellow roses and the golden celebration and all of the white roses, in fact, were at their absolute peak. But what a lot of tours do is that they just go in, see the roses, then they're out. No. We actually go behind the scenes. Now, I can tell you, but you'll have to keep it to yourself, we'll actually get a chance, quite likely, to hold the Melbourne Cup. Yes, the Melbourne Cup, you have to put gloves on and you get to hold the Melbourne Cup. It's an absolute treat. But going behind the scenes mean you actually get to meet the head gardener. He'll tell you the fertilizers they're using, the varieties of the roses, how they grow them, how they look after them. And you'll get to see the history of the Melbourne Cup in a special museum that they have there. Now, the crowds are not there. We're there the day before. So there's a fair amount of security, of course, as there is with the Lexus Melbourne Cup. But once we get through the security, then we're free to roam and we'll take you around to see this beautiful garden. It's one of the, from the marshalling yards where the roses are, right out into this area that you can see at the front. The roses will be looking at their best. They know the timing, the pruning, the feeding, the watering to it. They know it to the day. I don't know of anywhere in Australia, maybe Tulip Top, where they know the planting and the feeding and the pruning to an exact timing to get this display. Of course, that's what they're paid to do, and they do it extremely well. We'll also go to the Heidi Museum of Modern Art, and then we'll go up to Cloud Hill, where you will see the work of one man who has created this incredible garden. That's the hot border at Cloud Hill. Up there in the Dandenongs, the environment is beautiful. You'll get to see the cool border, which is in the opposite direction to this photograph. There, the tulips looking rather stunning. And I must admit, I love filming. I've filmed this garden in every season. And I must admit, the last time I was there was in winter, this time of the year, a couple of years ago. And I asked Jeremy, who owns this garden, I said, what's your favourite time? Expecting him to say spring, like this shot here. No, no, no. He said, I love winter. It's so stark and you see the bones of the garden. Isn't that amazing? So we'll get to show you Cloud Hill, which is one of those really beautiful gardens with Jeremy Francis, and enjoy his hospitality as well. Well, moving on. I can't believe there are so many wonderful journeys. Now, we're just waiting for this travel bubble to open up across the Tasman between our next door neighbour, New Zealand. We've been going to Gardens Marlborough for many, many years. And we feel it's the best of the garden shows in New Zealand. And like Tasmania, the plants are at their absolute peak. So when we arrive in Garden Marlborough, by the way, this is not a Chelsea flower show. It's a low-key, friendly, beautiful place to meet the locals. We'll go to their show. We'll see these wisteria. I think the peak flowering time when we're there will be for wisterias and peonies. And you'll get to see really a stunning group of gardens. You'll get to go to the Garden Marlborough show. You'll get to meet the owners of the gardens once again, behind the scenes. In fact, I remember a couple of years ago when Sandra took this tour, there was a bit of a shower of rain and this glorious home and this beautiful garden. It was a little bit showery. And she said, oh, all come inside the home. Everybody, the entire group went inside her private home, and it was just full of treasures, and it was just lovely hospitality. And I must admit, the Kiwis do it better than most. They're just a lovely, generous group of people, and they really love our groups coming over. We've been going there for years. And Jacinda, if you're listening, you just need to open that bubble, darling, so that we can come across and enjoy staying in Christchurch, Blenheim. Look at these lupins, will you? At the South Island, it's 9 days. We'll stay at Christchurch. We'll go to the Garden Marlborough Festival. We go out to Queen Charlotte Sound. We'll go for a bit of a journey out there. Blenheim's private gardens, the annual fete, and Hortensia House. These lupins, of course, are a great national treasure, even though they're exotic. They've become a great tourist attraction. Look at the mountains in the background, covered in snow. And that's because of the altitude. Even in spring, there's still plenty of snow about to get these beautiful shots. Our group always enjoy going there. There's Sandra in the front. There's Carolyn in the pink at the front. We've had a couple of tour leaders been taking this group for many years. Again, it's one of those journeys. You sit back, relax, enjoy the hospitality, take lots of photographs and enjoy the gardens. And you'll come back with a really, a totally different aspect. I think the thing that people enjoy so much is that not only you get to see the private gardens, but you actually get to see the show. Here it is here. And it's a really friendly, low-key, domestic type show. It's not a big, ritzy affair. And you get to talk to the growers, get some tips from them. You get to see the displays, and you get to see the flower show as well. But it's a bit of an old-fashioned, low-key garden show. That's what I like about it most of all. It's one of those typical friendly things that New Zealand does extremely well. Well, the next one, Kirsty, I've got to say, and I hope you listeners and viewers are jotting these down. This is the most spectacular landscape in Australia. It's won more international awards, and of course I'm talking about Barangaroo. This is our tour inside gardens and inside Sydney. Look at Barangaroo, isn't it glorious? I can't believe that we actually got to build this. You know, if it was today, they'd very likely say, no, it's too expensive. But we have the New South Wales government and the ratepayers and federal government money as well went into not only creating this garden, but recreating the headland. Now, the pill, which is that little building that you can see in the middle there, it's gone. They've removed the pill. And they call it the pill because it oversaw all the berths in Sydney Harbour. that was a maritime joke that we used to mention on the Jacaranda cruise. Now the pill's gone, that viewing outlook. And what we have now is the entire headland has been returned to Sydney Harbour. The way that it was done, the expertise, the horticulture, the soil science, the landscape construction is breathtaking. You'll notice that all the walls around Barangaroo are all at an angle. That's so that the fish can start breeding, and they did within 3 months. They weren't vertical piers. They're all they actually go down in tiers down into the water. It's just such a beautiful design. New York, a designer, Peter carried out work, and then of course it was Stuart Pittenry, our great landscape designer, who really carried out the horticulture. The expertise in the horticulture here, the nursery work that was done up the Central Coast, the soil science to reproduce the soil that was on site there originally from excavated sandstone to create that bay on the right-hand side you can see there. Well, they're the reasons it has taken out so many international landscape awards. And Australia should be very proud of Barangaroo. So we'll take you into Barangaroo, but we'll also, once again, we'll take you to private gardens like Bronte House. And the owners there and the gardeners, they will take you. They are just the most beautiful people you could ever imagine. And they'll explain, it's only 6 days, but you get to, so if we have a guest from interstate and overseas, there they are really enjoying little glimpses into the private gardens at Bronte House. Vaucluse House, one of our oldest heritage homes in Australia, and we'll get to visit there and walk the landscape. You'll really enjoy the North Shore Gardens, and of course our very dear friend Wendy Whiteley. Wendy's private little garden has now become, well, it was written up by Janet Hawley in that beautiful book, Wendy's Secret Garden. Well, it's no secret anymore because thousands of people go to visit Wendy Whiteley's Secret Garden right in the middle of the North Shore there in that beautiful little bay. We also visit May Gibbs Nutcote, the home of May Gibbs right on Sydney Harbour. So you'll get to see some beautiful private creations and the gardens that Wendy has created with the help of some of her friends and staff. But it's not just Sydney. Well, oh yes, I should mention this. I actually went to this a couple of years ago, and honestly, I couldn't believe. We went again last year and filmed it for Better Homes, you might remember, and I couldn't believe that this reservoir, which was built to supply water for Sydney way back in colonial times, well, the water's gone and they've turned it into the most magnificent sunken garden. And it is right in the heart of Paddington, and it's called the Paddington Reservoir Garden. If you drive past it, you wouldn't even know it was there. You've got to stop, get out of your car. Well, in our case, we get out of the coach and we'll take you right down those stairs at the back, you can see there, into this incredible landscape. It's a wonderful scene. The thing I love about it is that mums and their babies have got a lift. They can access via a lift. So you don't have to go down the stairs. You just go down in a lift, and it's just filled with mums and prams and babies just enjoying this private, exclusive little reservoir garden. It's great what we can do with these old historic sites. In fact, when I first went down there, it looked like we were entering some Greek or Roman antiquity because they went to so much trouble to create the structure to hold the water. All of this used to be underwater. Now, of course, it's the home of a beautiful garden. But we, from Sydney and the North Shore and the reservoir at Paddington, we head down south to our very dear friends at Red Cow Farm. Glory Moses, what a garden that is. You know, if you're not following Red Cow Farm on Instagram, you're missing out on some great joy. Every day there are postings from Red Cow Farm. Ali Mentish is one of the greatest of gardeners in Australia. He's so underrated and so humble, but horticulturally, I think he's one of the best gardeners we have in our nation. And it's evident when you can go to Red Cow Farm any time of the year. We'll be there in November. It's peak season when it's in full flower. So finish that off, we're going to take you on a Jacaranda cruise around Sydney Harbour. So you'll get to see the Kea down in the Southern Highlands, Red Cow Farm, a trip on the Manly Ferry. We'll take you around the Royal Botanic Gardens in Sydney, and as I mentioned earlier, the Barangaroo Headland Reserve. And I'll introduce you to some history on the harbour in our Jacaranda cruise. What a stunning old day. I can't wait for that. I'd love to go on all of these tours. I just love them. And I've got to say, our staff spend so much time, years and years, researching all these itineraries to really come up with the best locations, meet the owners, go behind the scenes, take your notebook, take your camera, take the photographs with your phone, and you'll just have a grand journey, Kirsty. It's just wonderful. Our next one is, once again, South Australia has opened the travel situation with locals in South Australia. Now, we've been doing a tour to South Australia for many, many years. I think we've maybe 15 or more years. And then we discovered Kangaroo Island, and we thought, we've got to add Kangaroo Island. Well, okay, you add Kangaroo, you've got to take a few things off or you'd be there for months. So we've actually pruned the tour back a few years ago to include what we think is the best of South Australia. Now, Kangaroo Island has just had the worst experience, I think, of any of the islands around our nation. And Kangaroo really needs our support. The people need our backing. There's quite a large area that hasn't been burnt. They're looking for our support, and we've made an assessment that there's more than enough to see, as well as supporting the wonderful folk on Kangaroo Island for us to make that journey across the waterways there. So it's only a short journey, 5 to 14 of November. That's the group there on Kangaroo Island on the beach. But you'll get to see, it's a very diverse tour. In fact, it's very likely more variable than any other Australian tour that we do, because from Kangaroo Island, we literally take you up into the Barossa Valley. Fascinating German heritage. It goes back to the 1840s. Our dear friend at Uluru Farm, I was there filming once again a couple of years ago. She is such a delight, and Ruth Irvine's garden is one of the most amazing exuberance of gardens. You'll see so much in these gardens that are relevant to design at home and just sheer enjoyment that you'll be able to take away with you as an experience. So I guess the Uluru Farm at One Tree Hill, you will see beautiful landscapes and beautiful gardens there. When we filmed, it's about the same time, so you'll get to see the roses. Believe it or not, the perennials, and out the back, there's an amazing, there's the group there. And there's Libby Cameron right in the middle, just behind the driver. Oh, so many familiar faces. And that's the thing about Ross Tours, you know, we don't boast about it, or I do, because I'm very proud of it. I'm very proud of our team and very proud of our staff. We have over 70% return rate of business with our tours, both here and overseas. Most companies are proud to have 20 or 30%. We've got more than double that. And so many of the faces we see in that photograph have been with us time and time again, and they're part of our family. And if you're new to Ross Tours, we'd love you to be part of our family as well. We also, on this incredible journey, will take you to the oldest merino stud in South Australia. I don't know if John MacArthur will be there, but his sheep will be. And you'll see some beautiful perennials, great roses. And of course, you couldn't go to South Australia without a visit to Maggie Beer's iconic farm shop. So you'll need your pennies there to buy some of Maggie's amazing produce. And then to Harndorf, again, another place that I was filming at recently, the oldest surviving German village in Australia. And I must admit, one of the least known, one of the most precious, treasured gardens in Australia is the home of Hans Heissen, and that's the place called The Cedars. Now, we love Hans Heissen, we love his paintings around the walls, but we haven't really held his home and garden up to the scrutiny and the enjoyment that it really deserves. Well, we do, and we've been going to The Cedars for many, many years. I just love it. It's a beautiful private spot, and they're starting to win awards now, so it's getting onto the map, Kirsty, and I think people are going to really enjoy it. More than 50 years, the Hyson family lived there. And you'll also get to see some of Hans Hyson's sister's paintings there as well. Now, you couldn't go again to South Australia without a visit to our dear friend from Gardening Australia, Sophie Thompson. So we're going to pop in and see Sophie, have a look at her garden that you see on Gardening Australia. She'll be there, she'll say good day, and all of her tribe of kids. She's a great gardener, great horticulturist, a great nurseryman too. She comes from a long line of very respected nursery people in South Australia, but she's gone a slightly different direction when her parents passed away. But she's kept the gardening going and kept the horticulture going without a doubt. She's one of our finest on the telly and one of the finest in the garden that you'll find anywhere. So visit Sophie Thompson's garden, and as I mentioned earlier, Kangaroo Island.
Yes,
the Barossa, yes, look at that coastline. Isn't it amazing? It's just like the ocean is eating into our great continent. And of course, you're up into Harndorf, all of those beautiful scenes. I could sit and look at that all day, and you can just hear, in fact, quite often when we park, and you can see a little entry there in the middle of that photograph, a little lookout, you often see the whales going past. And they're not the whales that go up the east coast of Australia. These are the whales down in the Great Southern Ocean. You can pick them because they got beanies and overcoats on because it's so bloody cold down there. But it is just a fantastic, fabulous spot to visit, and you'll enjoy a couple of nights. We do stay, by the way, in the McLaren Vale on the way to Adelaide. 2 nights, so we get to see quite a bit of South Australia. And as I mentioned right at the beginning, we get to support the local communities, and we stay in Kingscote as well, which is really good.
Yeah.
Another journey we've been doing for many, many years, and we've modified it and added to it. And I think we've polished this one to the point that it shines in the dark. And this is inside Victoria. Now, Kirsty's taking this. You did this journey last year, I think, didn't you?
I did, Carolyn Graham. Wonderful.
Yeah. Carolyn took the tour last year. She's one of our long-term tour leaders. Kirsty will be taking this one. It's from the 9th to the 16th of November. And of course, that photograph that you're looking at there is an aerial view of one of the great gardens in Australia, and that's Paul's garden. It's an interesting combination. The view is out to the left from the house over that waterway. I don't know how he prunes those buxus in the middle with the pencil pines in the middle of it, but it's such a precise garden, and you'll get to enjoy this incredible landscape. Now, we're staying in Mornington, out on Mornington Peninsula, and also in Ballarat. Now, once again, you get to meet the owners. This is something that we have as a standard in all of our journeys as much as we possibly can. You'll get to meet Fiona Brockhoff and visit her private garden. You'll get to see what she does. Oh, I just realised that photograph. Oh, that's my dear. Oh, we miss. And, you know, you can only pick that garden. That's Cruden Farm. Dame Elizabeth Murdoch's beautiful garden at Cruden Farm. I was so fortunate to interview Dame Elizabeth for Better Homes twice. She was 99, going on about 40, and then she was 100, I think going on 101, and she was going on about 50. She was just the most sensational person and I have never seen, which you can see in the photograph, there's one on the left and one on the right, they're standard honeysuckle. Now that's her cutting garden, and she had a special cutting garden that was just for cut flowers. And she used to have these huge bouquets. There's some peonies there I can see as well. It's got dahlias and roses. It's a fantastic private garden. That's Cruden Farm, the one-time home of the most gorgeous woman and great gardener, Dame Elizabeth Murdoch. Lambley's Nursery. We'll go out to Lambley's and visit David Glenn, the owner of Lambley's Nursery. And you'll get to see not only, and the great thing about David's garden, he's got a trial garden, and nothing he sells in his nursery at Lambley's that hasn't gone through winter after winter, summer after summer. Everything is drought proof. Every single plant, he just won't hold it. He's such a fastidious horticulturist, David Glenn. and the plants he sells, and I know a lot of you buy them online. He's a great nurseryman. Well, we not only get to see that trial garden, that beautiful garden that he has, enclosed, I think it's with a privet hedge, not the wild privet. It's one that grows in Victoria. They use for hedging a lot. And it encloses this garden, and it just protects it from the winds. It's the most remote parts outside Ballarat. But you'll get to see all his trial gowns and the extended landscapes where he came up with Ascot Rainbow, that amazing euphorbia. You'll see the origins of where that plant was created. All the different salvias, these are all under trial. Agapanthus, a whole range of hybrids. He's, again, a great plant breeder, David Glenn. That's at Lambley's Nursery. Now, while we're in Ballarat, we're going to a new garden for us. It's a beautiful historic homestead, Sears Homestead, and you'll really get to enjoy this one. Oh, now this garden I've also filmed in. This is Picardy. David Musk, Picardy Garden. We'll go to David's garden in a moment. This is in the Gippsland. Now, the Gippsland is quite different. The soils are different. The climate's different. And I've got to say the gardeners are different. They're just as challenged in other parts as they are in other parts of Victoria. But it's the successes that they have is the result of great plant selection and incredible maintenance. At Picardy, you will see roses growing up walls and you think it just shouldn't be there. And beautiful plants and great plant selection once again. Picardy, we filmed in a few years ago, and it's one of the great gardens of Australia, and it's on this tour. And then, of course, we go to Broughton Hall. Now, if you're not following all these people on Instagram, you're crazy. I love it. You'll be taken on a journey. Follow their Instagram, Picardy and Broughton Hall. Now, David Musker has created at Broughton Hall another fabulous landscape, a garden for all seasons. But when we're there, the 9th to the 16th of November, it will be at its absolute peak. So I guess one of the things that we're really looking forward to is to catching up with all of the owners and these gardens at their peak of flowering. Musk Farm, which was designed by Stuart Rattle, is on this landscape as well. Now, I mentioned Dame Elizabeth's beautiful Cruden Farm. She referred to the head gardener as her #1 gardener, and we hope that he'll be there and take us on a private tour around that incredible garden. And keep an eye out. We haven't got a photograph of it, but keep an eye out for the climbing hydrangea. The climbing hydrangea on the stables.
Oh,
it's just breathtaking. I can't grow it in my garden, so I've got to go to all these beautiful gardens and to Cruden Farm to see some of these beautiful plants that the cooler climate we bring to you in this journey. Staying at Mornington, which is a lovely part of Victoria, and on another day we go out to the Gippsland for 2 extraordinary gardens there. So Picardy, you'll love, and of course it's more of a French style. This one here that's on the screen, it's more of a French style garden. And David Musker's garden at Broughton Hall, we'll visit both those gardens. They're both in rural scenery, by the way. David has a lovely lake. Well, it's more than a lake, a water view in the distance. At Picardy, you get to see a rural landscape and this garden set in the middle of it all. Stunning. Oh,
fantastic tour.
Yeah, it is. An absolutely fabulous tour.
Yeah, really
we'll run out of expletives, I think.
Yeah.
In 1940, the first tour that we ever took was, in fact...
Oh, sorry, everyone. There we are. Sorry.
The first tour that we ever took, our first tour, over 700 tours ago, I might add, was to Japan. And I'm often asked why, and it's because Alan Seale was still alive and taking the Women's Weekly World Discovery Tours then. Alan was still alive. And I said, look, let's go to Japan. I'd been wanting to go there with students from the School of Horticulture and teachers when I was teaching there. And eventually I retired from RIDE right at the very beginning in January 1980. And in October 1980, we went to Japan. Well, we've been going every year since, either in spring or autumn, or in some cases both. Now, 2020, we were due to go to both, but COVID knocked that for a six. But, you know, we've kept this tour on our books because Japan is in a similar position with COVID-19 as Australia. And the Prime Minister of Japan, Shinzo Abe, has opened up Tokyo, Kyoto, and the remote parts. In fact, I was talking to friends. In fact, we've got the most wonderful guide. Mari Katsui has been our national guide in Japan for 15, 20 odd years. And I was talking to her during the week, and she was saying that it's very quiet, it's very peaceful, and the autumn is looking particularly good as far as weather-wise. And we go up in the Nikko, it is just nothing like Japan in autumn. Now, the reason that our spring tour is so popular is that everyone gets to know about cherries, flowering cherries, and then later Linda's tour, which goes to the wisteria. But, you know, the unknown season, the serenity of Japan to me is still the quiet time of autumn, when the maples are, you know, they've got maples like we have, you know, gum trees. So the mountains are just covered with 20 different species of maples. So where we've got grey and green all over our hills, they have reds and purples and yellows and crimsons and oranges. Their mountains are just covered with these incredible colours. We'll take you into the gardens, and we're really looking forward. We're hoping that Japan and Australia will open up a travel bubble there as well. It's the Zen garden. It's the beauty of Japan that I love so much, with its richly coloured gardens, that whispering sound of the bamboo, and of course the contemplating Zen gardens in Kyoto. You know, there are more gardens and more temple gardens in Kyoto that you could visit in an entire lifetime. If you visited one every day of your life, every day, you would still, at the age of 70, not have visited all the gardens in Kyoto. Isn't it an incredible record? And the reason they're there is because it was never bombed during World War II. It's a great treasure, Kyoto. We go up to Kanaya, to the Nikko, our dear friends there, the oldest hotel in Japan at the Kanaya Hotel. You'll be inspired. It's an exquisite gardens to visit, breathtaking displays, and there's one other attraction that people just don't know about Japan. In fact, there are two. This is one of them. This is Nabanosato. Now, our very dear senior travel consultant discovered this garden, who works with us, and Rosalind said, I'm going to Japan to do a little recce. This is a few years ago. And she came back with this story about Nabanosato. And I said, sounds like Disneyland on steroids for gardeners. And so we included it. Well, I've got to say, this is the entranceway. And it is just the beginning of one of the most amazing experiences that you'll ever have in a lifetime. Now, it may seem a little bit OTT, but at the end of it is a garden, the experience of which you will not see anywhere in the world. There are two huge glass houses. It's the largest horticultural exhibit creation in Japan. It's still not on the international travel list. We've been going now for about 10 years. I don't think we've ever seen another non-Japanese tourist there. So I just love taking our Aussie travellers to Nabanosato. It's outside Nagoya. So we spend a day in Nagoya Castle, and you'll get to see the beautiful begonias at Nabanosato and this amazing light show. And if you think that's part of the light show, that's nothing. There's another 90% of the light show that's at the other end of this tunnel, as well as the most incredible garden. We'll get there in the afternoon. We'll take you through all the garden. We'll have dinner, an early dinner, and then around about 6:30, because it might be about 5:30 actually in autumn, 6:30 in spring, but in autumn it's about 5:30. It starts to get dark, and then the lights come on, and we'll take you down this walkway into another land, absolute wonderland. And at the end of the tour, we always give our travellers a little survey to fill in. And I always think, you know, they're going to say, oh, that was just shocking, all those lights and the colour. But they always include it because they can't believe the precision and the colour and just the joy that Nabino Sato brings, especially for us as gardeners. A lot of people go just to see the light show, but as gardeners, we go to see the incredible, the largest display of begonias in the world is in Nabino Sato. Would you believe it? Now, when we're there, there'll also be the largest display of dahlias. So we'll get to see acres. I'm talking about acres and acres of precision grown dahlias, 2 huge glass houses of more begonias that you'll ever see in your life in one spot. And then the general garden itself. And then we'll take you to have a beautiful lunch, a beautiful dinner, I should say. And then we'll wander through this tunnel into the light show. We'll be staying in Owazu, which is, oh, I knew you were going to do that to me. This is the other attraction. Now, we'll stay in Owazu. We'll of course, we stay in Nikko and Tokyo, Kanazawa up in the northwest, Nagoya, and beautiful Kyoto. I just love Kyoto. It's a great, one of the great cities. Now, in Nagoya and in Tokyo, they have the 2 largest chrysanthemum exhibitions anywhere. Now, the one in Tokyo is in Shinjuku Goyen Garden, and it's very much close to the palace, the Imperial Palace, where the Emperor and the Empress live, and the royal family. And because they've been visiting, the royal family visit, the standard is impeccable. There are 1,000 flowers on that chrysanthemum. And the stem, you won't believe this, the stem, one stem, this is one plant, the stem is thinner than a pencil. Work that out. I can't. I've studied and looked at this collection for decades, and I still can't believe the standard of horticulture is frightening. It's just unbelievable. Now, there are whites, there are yellows, there are pinks, and there are dozens of these. Now, that's in Shinjuku Goyen Garden in Tokyo. And later in the tour, when we go to Nagoya, everyone thinks we've seen the chrysanthemum exhibition, couldn't be any better. And then we go to Nagoya Castle, and I'll take you to the palace, which is, I think, my 2nd most favourite building in the world after the Opera House in Sydney. And there's a couple of cathedrals that you could throw in there, but the palace, which has been restored after World War II in Nagoya, is the greatest piece of design and architectural construction that I know of. It's just a joy of a building to walk through. But before you get there, you will get to see another chrysanthemum exhibition just outside the palace. So you walk down this, you know, I've got to keep herding. It's like herding cats, my group, as we go through, and I can't wait to get back there. So if the Prime Minister of Australia and Japan are listening, we really want this tour to head off, because we've got people booked on it, and we'd love a whole group of people to join us on this wonderful journey. And you'll get to see these beautiful chrysanthemums and all these fabulous autumn colours and the great light show of Nabino Sato. 1,000 flowers on that chrysanthemum, and that's just one of dozens that I'll show you. In fact, you need 2 battery chargers for your phone, by the way, on every one of these tours. Don't take one charger for your phone. You'll need 2, because and you'll need plenty of space, because your phone will run out of space. Japan, autumn. I'm really hoping we can get this journey up this year. I'm looking forward to it. We've got people booked on it, and we're looking forward to getting some more to make sure that it happens.
Perfect. Thank you, Graham.
Our next journey, of course, is to Linda and Dan's Collectors Plant Fair. Now, sadly, they had to cancel the early autumn show. Then they went into a slightly different format, so that people were buying their plants online. But the thing that people really missed was getting to meet the owners, meet the growers, and actually get to buy the plants from the people that grow them. Now, these are not the plants that you get at your local garden centre or Bunnings. These are the rarest of plants in Australia, the rarest perennials, the rarest shrubs, the rarest herbs, the wisterias, the orchids. It's an enormous list of plants, the bromeliads. And Linda and Dan have gone to so much trouble to get the Collectors Plant Fair over several years now. I think it's in its 13th or 14th year. They took over it about 4 years ago, and it's out of Clarendon. And they've taken a big step to project forward when, in fact, COVID was still pretty rampant. And they thought, well, we've got to see if we can offer our gardeners another opportunity before the year ends to have Collectors Plant Fair. So it goes for the weekend. We're going to be there for one day on the 26th of November. Now, it's a new tour program. I think you're taking this, Kirsty, aren't you?
I am, yes.
Yep. So Kirsty should be spearheading this program. Now, the tour leaves from our office here in Beecroft. It includes lunch and some plant shopping, some truckloads of plant shopping. Now, we've got to get a very big coach and a trailer on the back to put all the under the bus. You won't have any luggage, so there'll be room for all your plants in cartons and bags underneath and on a trailer on the back. The Collectors Plant Fair, it's at Hawkesbury Showground, and it's a great day out. But we decided, you know, by about 1 o'clock or so, because we'll get up there early, get in the, you know, we'll get you in through the back entranceway so that you get in early and you won't have to go through the queues. Kirsty's already organised that.
That's it.
Yeah, she knows the manager. She's worked on that. But we just thought, you know, well, you can't come back at 1 o'clock or 2 o'clock in the afternoon. Let's add another garden. Well, Wayne and Sue Tapping, I've known since Wayne and Sue owned a little nursery. Well, it wasn't so little, a big nursery out at Richmond, North Richmond. They sold the nursery after many years. I've known them both. They're just the loveliest people. And then in their semi-retirement, how stupid, they then created a beautiful garden. Beautiful. And they've gone on to create Wildwood. Now, you often hear me mention Wildwood on the radio. Well, Wildwood is up in at Bilpin. And it's just off the Bells Line of Road at Bilpin. We spoke on the radio in the midst of the bushfires to the folk up there, and the bushfire literally went right clean over the top of where they were standing. Honestly, we are so lucky that Wayne and Sue weren't killed. The garden, it's attracting huge crowds at the moment. Last weekend and the weekend before, Wayne was telling Kent, my son Kent, that they had great crowds. And I'm really pleased that people are starting to visit the Blue Mountains again and get to see this beautiful garden, which they've included on this great tour on Collectors Plant Fair. So you'll be going up to Wildwood Garden at Bilpin on that journey. Now, we're acutely aware. I wasn't able to go to the opening of Mount Tomah because I was on radio at the time, but my mum and dad went up on the train because they had a special train going to the opening. And it was a pretty flash sort of turnout. Well, it's now grown to be the Blue Mountains Botanic Gardens because it's part of the Heritage UNESCO listed Blue Mountains National Park. It's a beautiful garden, sensational design, very much Professor Carrick Chambers' design for this garden, although it's had a lot added to it. Well, what you can see is when I was a trustee of the Botanic Garden, is the view that we're able to protect, that view in the distance there. But that view has been burnt pretty badly. Now, the fire came right up to the edge of Mount Tomah Botanic Garden, and we'll show you just how the bush is regenerating, how this beautiful, treasured, precious garden was saved by the local RFS and the staff at Mount Tomah. They did a brilliant job in saving this garden for all of us. And it's not just for New South Welshmen, and it's not just for Australia. This garden is a precious international treasure. And we're going to see why they spent so much effort. You'll see the Wallamai collection, some of the biggest in any garden outside of the Wallamai National Park itself, which is off to the left in those gullies. And of course, we nearly lost that treasured little collection as well. But this is a Mount Tomah. It's only a day tour. We've introduced...
You're taking that one, Graham.
Pardon?
You're going with the group.
Yes, I'm taking it.
Yeah, it'll be really fun.
Yes, sorry, I'd forgotten. Yes, I'm taking it. And I'm really looking forward because I haven't been up for about 2 years. I'm going to go up there again in the next couple of weeks. I was talking to the director a couple of weeks ago and just the efforts that they're going to. and the observations they're making with how the banksias are regenerating, how the seed is germinating, the gums, the tree ferns, all of these amazing endemic trees around this national park, and how the just the heat that impacted on the plants, they're able to measure and just to see how it all happened. Now, we're going to have lunch, I think, at Wildwood Garden from memory. Yes, we are. We're going to have lunch with Wayne and Sue at their lovely garden at Wildwood. And we'll take you up to visit Mount Tomah. Now, a lot of people have asked us if we could sort of find somewhere on the side of the road where we can just see how the bush is regenerating. I've been going up there since I was 14 or 15 years of age. I know the Blue Mountains really well, and I know this stretch of road that I've been travelling, honestly, on a bi-monthly basis for decades, and I love it. And I'm really looking forward to actually explaining to you just how the bush is regenerating. And there is an upside, and the upside is we'll get to see ground orchids that we haven't seen for 50 years. We'll get to see the bush regenerating in a way, just in a one-day tour, and that's the 30th of September. All these day tours, by the way, fill up very, very quickly, so don't leave it too long before you make your inquiries to join. Well, honestly, Mickey, down there at Glenmore House, a wonderful home, a wonderful garden, and a wonderful vegetable gardener, and a wonderful chef. She's an incredible cook. Mickey Robinson has done something quite amazing at Glenmore House. We still include this on a lot of our bigger tours, but a lot of people don't have a week or 2 weeks to travel around the joint. So we thought, well, okay, let's just go to Glenmore House for one day, 24th of October. It's a spectacular day. It's my birthday, actually. So if you want to go down and have a little champagne for me, you'll really enjoy it. Kirsty's taking this tour. So Kirsty, when you're down there, a little champagne if you like. Little cheers.
Will do, Graham.
Yeah. And it's a super spot that you'll enjoy. Glenmore House, one day, 24th of October. But, you know, you'll enjoy all of Mickey's vegetable garden experiences, but then you've got to call in and see one of my best mates in the whole gardening game, Tim Pickle. Tim's got Tim's Garden Centre. He's a great guy. He's one of the hardest working nurserymen I know in Australia. He's got lovely staff, a lovely garden centre, and there's an opportunity for you to buy some of his butte plants. He'll look after you. He'll be there. He'll want to give you a hug, but he very likely won't with COVID. But he'll give you a verbal hug anyway and welcome you to Tim's Garden Centre. That's on the way home, just so you can do a bit of shopping on the way.
Yeah.
Now, a lot of my students, bless them, have gone on to do incredible work. And like Alan Jackson out there at Goryu, one of the greatest Japanese gardens in creation at the moment out there at Little Hartley. But another young fellow who has gone on to do incredible work is Peter Nixon. He's a beautiful soul, Peter. He's one of those gentle, lovable people that once he got qualified and became a horticulturist, he then just went into hibernation, collecting plants, sourcing plants, growing them, and then growing a number of gardens. I remember back when Better Home started in 95, it would have been 96 or 97, I think, we filmed his first garden here in Sydney. Eventually, he moved on from that garden and has now created one up on the Central Coast. It's a beautiful spot, and it's a lovely, intimate, really perfect, intimate garden. You will love the bromeliads and the way that he's used them. In fact, since this photograph was taken, that golden bromeliad on the left-hand side has completely enveloped that fence. Everything has green walls. Everything has taken over with plant material. He's such a plantsman. There are good gardeners, good horticulturists, and there are plantsmen. Peter is all three. And he's a real treasure. He's only a young fella, but a lovely guy to boot. So you'll love that one day, 21st of November, and that's with Peter Nixon.
Perfect.
Well, and then, ta-da, we're back on Jacaranda cruising. Now, we've got the ships, we've got the boats. These are not tinnies. We're going out on Captain Cook cruises. We're going to take you around and take you into Lane Cove River and give you a great experience of the Jacaranda cruises. We'll give you a little of a view of Barangaroo from the water so that you get to see the waterways as well. And I'll give you the history and the views. It's another spot. Yeah, you'll get a muffin and a cup of coffee, a cup of tea, and if you're quick, you can get a champagne and a beer as well. Now, we've got 3 dates. They're already starting to fill up: the 1st, the 4th, the 8th, and the 11th of November. It really is a great journey. We'll have some international guests, we hope, by then as well. So it's a great journey. We've been doing it for years. We've had over 25,000 people on Sydney Harbour on our Jacaranda cruises, and people just keep coming back year after year. And there are lots of reasons they do, is because of the people. And look at our tour leaders.
Yep.
Our tour leaders are just the best in the business. Colin on the left-hand side there. Look, all of them, the whole group of our tour leaders. Kirsty's not there because this photograph was taken at the beginning of last year. Michael McCoy down the front there with me, and dear Libby Cameron, Claire Bickle next to Linda, Paul Urquhart, and of course Robin. Robin Powell's been with us for such a long time, and Brent Reed up the top right-hand corner. He looks like a telegraph pole. He's about the height of one. All of these people, along with my dear wife Sandra on the left-hand side. That Lion doesn't take tours, by the way, but that's down at Lion Gate Lodge, where we normally have this event that we have today, which we're doing on this very amazing, and I hope it's been useful for you and helpful to explain the journeys that we're taking for the rest of 2020. Please go safely, and I hope you've enjoyed our experience this morning.
Oh, wonderful. Thank you so much, Graham. It's been just a joy, as it always is, listening to all your stories about the trips. So I am now going to pass it over to Royce Green. He's our tour manager, and he is going to fill you in a little about how we're managing COVID and with our tours. So over to you, Royce.
Hi, Kirsty, and hi, everybody. Just wanted to have a quick comment on the current conditions for our tours. We've got an image up there just to indicate with regards to coaches that we'll use on the tour that there will be changes to the number of people that we can have on board to work within the new environment. We have different size coaches, so it'll just be dependent on the vehicles we use for each tour. We'll obviously be working within the social distancing guidelines and requirements throughout the tours for things like obviously in restaurants and the vehicles and the places we visit. So and of course all the health warnings, we'll do our best to provide hand sanitizer and opportunities for people to keep their hands clean throughout the tours. It's a changing world, and we're doing our best to work within that. Things are sort of in limbo at the moment, but we're anticipating borders to Western Australia, Tasmania and South Australia to be reopened fairly soon, and to allow us to proceed with our scheduled tours later in the year to those locations. Similarly, with events like the Melbourne Cup, where we're just waiting for the advice to proceed with that type of a tour. So the message at the moment is to expect a few changes for our regular travellers, with some limitations on seating, which will affect some tours. But if you are interested in getting to any of our destinations in spring, please let us know. We're not finalising things until we get those borders open. but we're gathering our groups, making all our arrangements in preparation for the border reopening and getting the tours away. So yeah, any interest for coming tours, please send us an email, give us a call at the office, or send a booking request through the website, and we'll get you on the list and get you booked in. So I hope to see everybody soon on some of our tours.
Excellent. Thank you so much, Royce. Well, that really wraps it up, everyone. So thank you so much for joining us today. And I know I had a lovely time, and it was great getting you questions, and we're actually able to answer some. I will follow up with everyone. So everyone who's registered and who got my email about this webinar, I'll certainly follow up with you and check in about what you've thought, and if there's any tours you'd like some more information on. So yeah, I think that's it. Thank you so much, Graham.
My pleasure. It's been fantastic to have you all aboard. I look forward to catching up with so many of our friends and some new faces on the tours coming out. Those one-day tours look great. And don't forget, I'm so sure that we're going to go to Japan. I've been positive about it the whole year. So there you go. That's in November. Fingers crossed. But most importantly, please go safely and look after yourself. Thank you, Kirsten.
Thank you, Graham. All right. Bye-bye, everyone. Take care. Bye-bye.